Hey guys, Danny Johnson here, and today we're going to be looking at things that you would want to know if you were buying a Terminator. And this video is going to be based more towards like people who are looking for a collector car Terminator, since these cars are now going up in value and people are starting to collect them and pay big money. And so this video will show you some of the Terminator specific things that you want to look for, whether the car's been modded, the condition of the car, pieces that might be missing, that kind of thing. So, don't be too upset if the car you're looking at is missing a lot of these items. My car doesn't have everything that I'm listing either, but it's just good things to know that if you're new to the Terminator, or even if you're familiar with the Terminator, things that you might want to be looking out for. So please make sure to check the video description as well. I'll put links to videos that I've made that are showing a lot of these things. But first thing to note is the snake in the grill. And this is a very easy, common thing, but that really should be a running horse. None of the Terminators came with a snake in the grill. So as a collector car, that's something you could probably easily find, but it's something to point out. The next thing that always comes up is if there are drill holes in the front bumper. Okay, so dealerships do that without even asking. It's just something you might see, but people complain about it. The front chin spoiler is also very, very hard to find on these cars and getting expensive. So, check to see if it has the factory one if you're going for authenticity. As for all of the light fixtures, pretty much, we're going to look here, for example, on the headlight, you're going to look for the Ford logo. You want to make sure that these are Ford OEM headlights. If you're buying a super low mileage, perfect, OEM car, headlights are something that can fog easily, and they're getting expensive and hard to find. Another Ford logo is found on the third brake light, so that's one that you want to check. And with these, you want to check the condition. I even bought a new one to have a backup, and it came scuffed up. Unfortunately, that's kind of common. The hardware is also hard to find, but what you'll look for is right by the hardware, you're going to look for cracks. As people slam the trunk, or just some people say these were too tight from the factory, so just over time, the third brake light will crack, and you'll see these lines. And so I actually have a picture of it that you can see here. And so this is what it looks like when it does crack, and it'll do that on both sides. And some people have put a clear vinyl over the entire third brake light, and it kind of hides that crack. So you want to look close. But, here's an example of one that's cracked as well. Okay, and so while we're talking lights, let's look at the taillights. Now, my car has the amber taillights. That does have a Ford logo on them. But what I want to point out is, let's look at a factory taillight here. This is off my GT. It's very old and beat up, okay? It has the Ford logo in the same place, though, above the reverse light, so that's where you're going to look for it. But what I wanted to point out is, if you look at these taillights, these ones have some pretty bad chrome flaking. I disassembled this. I'll put a video to that in the description. You can see it's really not worth disassembling it. But this is what it looks like on the inside when that chrome flakes away from moisture and condensation getting in there. And so that's something you want to look at if you're looking at a car, again, to be perfect, low mileage, paying top dollar for. And in the video, I talk about taking the lens off. It's not a very good idea how these are sealed. It's pretty bad, and it will melt. So look for little melt marks there on the lenses. They'll cave in if they get heat. Next, we're going to talk about the Terminator vents. These are very popular for people to replace, or they cut every other one out to make them bigger. Okay, and on my car, as you can see, it's missing the back side of these. So I actually found some reproduction ones, and I'll put a link to that in the description too of the video, where these are being remade in Canada, and it goes over part numbers and everything. And so as you can see, this has the rain shield on the back side, so the flap is closed, and so that flap would come open a lot. People would at that point just take it off. So anyway, these hood vents are something you might want to invest in. And along those same lines, check for the side scoop vents. They should be matching. They should have the horizontal lines, and the real ones say Terminator on the back. I'll put a video in the description for that too. Okay, on the fenders, you want to look for Ford logos and make sure that the car hasn't been in an accident where other pieces have been put in place. And so you'll find where it says Ford stamped on each fender there. And there's also a few other places for you to find Ford stamped into the body. Some of it's under the car. You'll have to do some research on everywhere. But another one up front that's very common is right here by the driver's side headlight. And by the hood prop, if you can see, there's a Ford logo there too. It's not on the passenger side, just the driver's side for that one. So don't be alarmed if you don't find it. Next is the crank pulley for the supercharger. A stock crank pulley is a very expensive and hard to find piece right now. And you can use the Metco one that deletes the caged part, but if it's something, you know, low mileage and original that you're looking at, that's one. Next, we're going to go to cam covers, and of course, on the cam covers, you want to make sure that you have that SVT plaque. And that's going to have the 2 signatures of who built that engine, okay? And now would be a good time to ask if the engine is original or if it's been rebuilt. That might change some of the authenticity. Also, on the side of the cam cover, you'll find a barcode with the date. And so as you can see, this is 11/09 of 02, so this one should not be on an 04 Cobra. Here's a stock 04 Cobra. This is my brother's car, very beautiful. You've probably seen it before. And so you want to pay attention to all of the EGR if that's all been deleted. So get some good pictures up of what it should look like under the hood of a Terminator. And something I want to point out especially is like the expansion tank. So a lot of these have been upgraded to a bigger unit, as you can see here, just like on my car. And that's not a bad thing, but you might want to ask or just look and see what other parts do you have. That's what I would ask them, is what parts come with the car, see if you can have some factory ones. So speaking of this, if we remove this pulley shroud, which is one that you want to make sure you have because people throw them away, on the supercharger there should be that plastic cap in the nose of the pulley. That's how you'll know if it's ever been removed. A lot of people are returning these cars to stock, and so a lot of those pieces, you know, they might be trying to pull a fast one on you and telling you that the car's all factory, and maybe it is, but you might want to know if it's ever been pulleyed, so look for that cap. Now, of course, that's not to say that they took the whole supercharger off and put it back on when they were done. So, you know, you can ask them and hopefully they'll be honest with you whether the car's been modded and returned back to stock or not. And these cars, a lot of them will not be stock. So don't be surprised if you know, can't find one that has the stock pulley. If you do buy one with a stock pulley, I would recommend, you know, don't change that pulley. Keep that supercharger how it is. Okay, of course, it's good to do other tests. Do a compression test. Make sure that the engine is good and safe. These cars see a lot of boost and heat, so you want to make sure they haven't flattened the cylinder, burned anything up. But again, look through all of the EGR equipment if that's important to you for it being factory. See what's been deleted. That's going to be really hard to find these exact pieces to put the car back. My car I'm pretty happy with because it does have some parts that are swapped, but nothing's been irreversible. Now, if you want to look at these lines up close and personal, check out my video on vacuum lines explained that I did. It'll show where they all go, and that can help you with some routing and also familiarize yourself with what it should look like. Now, for super collectible cars, the battery is a big thing. People want the original battery and the original tires. Both of those will probably not work, and they're not safe to be on, but they are things that you might want to have come with the car. For Terminators, another thing is the windshield wipers. They are specific. They have a little airfoil on them there. And so a lot of people have thrown them away even on low mileage cars because they didn't think twice when they were changing the wiper blades. That's another big thing to look for if you're getting a super low collector car, and a fun little Easter egg to find on a car with low mileage. But again, don't be surprised if you can't find those if they're not on the car anymore. Original wheels are also a big one. A biggest thing to look for there, look for SVT in the center cap. If it has a snake or something weird, they may be different. And on the back side, it will have the Ford casting for those wheels. So that's kind of a big thing to check for. And along those lines, look at the badges. I've seen so many of these cars with the snakes backwards. They have a 50-50 chance of putting them on right, and they still mess it up. So that's a good indication that something's been done with the car, whether it's an accident or paint protective film, something like that that's been added. Okay, rolling fenders is a huge thing to look for on these cars. As these cars, you know, are lowered and have, you know, modifications done for that, a lot of people will rent a fender roller if you've never seen one of these before. It bolts up to, you take the wheel off and put it in place of the wheel, and then you roll the fender on the inside, and so it basically flattens it so that the fender doesn't cut into your tire when you go over bumps or dips. So rolling the fenders is very common. So with all the racing that these cars see, make sure the car still has the independent rear suspension. A lot of people will swap it to a solid rear. And with that, if somebody swapped one back, you want to make sure it's not from a 99 Cobra, which is 28 spline. So the 01 Cobra has a 31 spline, and the 0304 Cobra has a slightly upgraded 31 spline differential. So anyway, just something to think about. Now I have a picture here of the knuckle on the IRS. The wheel's gone. And I have the Pitman puller on there because I was just showing somebody what it looks like, so disregard that. But what I wanted to show is this knuckle is aluminum, and to fit a smaller wheel with a drag slick on it, like a 15-inch one, a lot of people will grind that knuckle down. So that's something to look for. I would want to know if I'm buying a car that's supposed to be factory and IRS and everything, to make sure that that hasn't been ground down. You'll also want to check this top mounting bolt for the IRS where the subframe meets the car. You can see that this one's been ground down almost flat, and people will do that to accommodate a bigger wheel so that it doesn't tear up the inside of the wheel and the tire. And so you'll want to look at this and see if it's been ground down, or if they've changed them with low profile ones that usually have a hex head on them, or even a Torx on it. So they'll do that again so that a wider wheel will fit, but it really is hard to work on the car when that's been ground down flat and can cause other problems. So keep an eye out for that one. And so lowering the car can bring some other problems too. Let's talk about the front struts. This is what they look like on the Terminator. They had the Bilstein front shocks. So if you look at the head of this, instead of just having a slit notch in it, it actually has an Allen. So that's how you can kind of tell that they're the factory ones. But when you lower a car, a lot of times you will install the caster camber plates, and we did this on my brother's Mach 1, and they're very nice to have when you lower the car. However, this is another one of those irreversible things, because as you install these plates, this is what they look like when they're all said and done. You take off the factory mount, you flip it over, you make some marks here, and then you're going to have to punch where those two come together, and you're drilling a new hole. So it's something that's not going to hurt this. It could cause some rust, so look into that. But again, this is just one of those things for originality to look forward to. And if it's been done, make sure it's been done right. Okay, let's go into the interior a little bit. With the seats, I have to say, please don't be too picky. You're going to see bolster wear no matter what as these cars, as you're getting in and out of them. Just make sure that it's not torn up horribly, but it's normal to see some lines. I consider my seats very nice, and you can see that there's lines in them. And another thing along those lines is if you look over here, you can see that huge wrinkle. I've seen very low mileage cars that have that wrinkle there and up the seats. So, you know, just accept the seats for what they are. Don't be too picky about if you see a line or anything in them. They came like that even from the factory. So other than that, of course, this is Alcantara. Make sure that the seats are right. You'll want to check the dashboard in some other places. If the car has ever had a roll cage installed, a lot of times it cuts in right by the A-pillars towards the front of the dashboard. And, you know, remove the rear seat. Just, you might want to look and see if there's ever been a cage in the car. You might see rub marks on the roof, that kind of thing. Look for the Terminator specific pieces like the folding mirrors, the front and rear bumpers, the side skirts. Okay, I have a video also that I'll put in the description that shows a lot of these pieces. Something else to look for that is always taken off, it seems, is the factory antenna. So 04, I believe, is silver. I think 03's was black, but look for the factory antenna. Under the hood, look for the blanket. It's probably gone. It says Cobra vertically, and they're very expensive, selling for like $800 now because they're so rare. Inside the car, let's talk about shift knobs. Mine came like this, and first thing I asked, what else do you have with the car? Do you have the factory shift knob? And he did. So he actually gave me the factory shift knob with the car, and I later bought one of the Ford OEM ones, just knowing that someday they would probably stop making them, and they did, and the prices went through the roof. And so there's actually a lot of aftermarket 6-speed shift knobs floating around now that late model restoration has made as a remake. So if you look at the factory one, the little cap, as we'll call it, on the top has like a perfect dome and looks great like this. The only difference you can really tell with the late model restoration one from SVE is, and it's hard to see in this picture, but that cap is very thick and very tall. I would recommend getting one of these to use on a daily use and keep your other factory knob, you know, somewhere safe where where it won't get worn out. But this one isn't bad, and it's nice that they make them. Okay, so anyway, that's just something else that is a high wear item. So if you can find one used or new in the package, it might be a good investment. Inside, you also have other pieces, like the leather boot is different, and even for the handle is different for the Cobra. The steering wheel, as you know, says Cobra in it, so look and make sure it doesn't have the running horse, and make sure it's the right color, black, because that could show you that it's a steering wheel from an earlier model Cobra. Now, speaking of the steering wheel, if you look at the bottom, there's that slit down the middle. That's how you can identify the 0304 Cobra double wrap steering wheel. It's bigger and thicker than a standard GT. And also, you have the 10th anniversary that has the, you know, FR500 style one with the bulges towards the top, and Mistachrome that has that, of course, in the Mistachrome color. Also, rust is going to be a huge thing. One of my friends, YouTube friends, you know, Shelby Flyer, bought a car that was completely covered in rust with under like 1,000 miles on it. What you want to look for as you're looking at pictures, pay attention to the supercharger bolts here, the cam cover bolts. As you start to see rust like that, you know, sometimes it's unavoidable in some climates, so, you know, don't be too picky, but it's something to know. Desert climate is best. I would pop the trunk and look in here. This is where you're really going to see some buildup. And so on a dry desert climate car like this, it's clean, keep it clean. And so it's something to definitely look at. Pop the trunk and look all around. Of course, you got your SVT badges and other things like that. Again, I have amber taillights on this. I have the factory taillights in a box. Always ask what it comes with. As for the rear wing, if somebody has changed it out, look for drill marks that might be in the deck lid. Also, make sure the wing is a factory one. They do have reproduction ones, and some of them don't have the third brake light. For the keys, of course, this is just your general. Make sure you get both sets of keys with it if you can. They are chip specific, so, you know, the key fob itself too, not a big deal. They make a lot of reproduction ones, so just make sure that it says Ford on it. And this isn't going to be a deal breaker, but it's just something to look for authenticity. As we're talking about that, let's talk about the SVT certificate. Even my car, original owner still has mine to my knowledge, so I reordered one and it now says Ford Performance Group. So you want to look at that. The factory ones will have the actual SVT logo instead, and it's going to have the Tom Scarpello and John Coletti as those who were signing it. So, you know, make sure that those signatures are right. Also, treat it like a $100 bill. Hold it up to the light and make sure it has its watermark. So you should see something like this. And then on the reproduction one, it has the Royal brand. They changed even from that. And I have a video showing the differences between the Ford certificates. So again, I'll put that in the video description. Just check the video description. You'll see a ton of videos that you might enjoy. Also decoding it, you know, if the car looks like a Cobra and has the full drivetrain, make sure it is a Cobra. Look at the VIN, look for that Y specifically showing the supercharged V8, and decode it properly. Also, cylinder heads is something very important on these cars. So check my video on the castings. It shows you the different ones. And so early 03s compared to the mid 03s, some of the 10th anniversary Cobras got the 9-thread heads, and most 04s have the 9-thread heads, or should have. But anyway, that's something else to look at. And so, you know, you can go as far down the rabbit hole as you want. Look for stock K-member and whatever parts you think, you know, underneath the car, stock exhaust especially. But in the end, you know, these cars will still be worth something for what they are, even if they aren't perfectly stock how they came. And people know that they were modded. Some people will probably want to buy it in a modded, you know, sense because they wanted the car as a 600 horsepower car, because that's what it was as they were growing up. So anyway, don't be too critical, but definitely look out for what you're paying your money for, because they are getting more expensive. And just all in all, enjoy the car. Let me know if you have any questions. I'll put a ton of links in the description that you can follow and see and familiarize yourself more with the Cobra. Always ask what parts the car comes with. See if there's anything factory that they might just throw away, not caring or not knowing any different. But anyway, let me know your thoughts. As always, thanks for watching, and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Thanks, guys.